Good morning, everyone. My name is Bishop Dwayne Royster. I am the senior pastor of the Living Water United Church of Christ, the executive director of Power and Interfaith Movement here in the city of Philadelphia, and one of the co-chairs of the Working Families Party. And we are excited that you are here with us today. Give yourselves a round of applause. We have gathered here today because we want to talk about our collective future here in the city of Philadelphia. Our municipal elections are occurring this year. We will be electing city council candidates. We will be electing a new mayor. And we feel like we need to have a conversation with these folks to make sure that they hear the concerns of real Philadelphians. For far too long here in the city of Philadelphia, we have gone from being a participatory democracy to becoming an oligarchy where business is far more important than what's happening in the various neighborhoods in the city of Philadelphia. And today we begin a process of telling candidates who are running for the city of Philadelphia council and mayor's office, if you want to be elected, you must be concerned about the issues of Philadelphians who live in North Philly and South Philly and Mount Airy and Fishtown and Kensington and Oxford and the Greater Northeast and live in the cities, and they are concerned about our issues first and foremost before anybody else's profits. So we are excited to be here to have this conversation. We are glad that there are multiple sponsors and supporters of today's events, and we want to lift them up. District Council 1199C, Action United, Move On, PASNAP, PCAS, PFT Local 3, Power, SCIU 32DJ, and SCIU Healthcare PA, the Women's Community Revitalization Project, and Youth United for Change. Now, we have to be honest, there are multiple events going on today in the city. It's Saturday in the election season. And so we will not have all of our council candidates with us for the entire time, but we are joined by some right now and others who will be coming shortly. Before I introduce the council candidates, I want to lift up two things so that we're clear on some of the rules. There is no petitioning in this space. This is a nonpartisan conversation with candidates so that we can hear very clearly what they have to say to us, and more importantly, they will hear what we have to say to them. Second of all, there are no candidate signs allowed in this space. So if you have a candidate sign, please take it out of this room. It is not allowed. If you are tweeting or using Facebook, you can use the hashtag PhillyWF. Philly WF, meaning Philly Working Families. We also want to point out to all of our candidates that part of being a great politician is being able to say a lot with little words. And so we want to be mindful of the time that we are going to have to speak today, that in each section, each candidate will only have 2 minutes to respond. As a result of that, I don't want to be rude, but if you go over your time, and I will be timing you with the timer on my phone, I will interrupt you and say thank you for your presentation, and we will move on to the next candidate. I just want to make sure everybody is clear on that. Are we all clear on that? No disrespect to anybody, but we need to keep it moving, and we need to keep it to the point. So we want to acknowledge, first before we begin introducing candidates, are there any other city council candidates here right now that are scheduled to be here today to speak? Fine. We want to begin on our side here, all the way to my right, is Helen Ginn. Next to her is Sherry Cole. To my left is Isaiah Thomas. And to his left is Tom Wilde. Before us are 3 microphones, and what we will do when the time for the candidates' responses to come, we're going to ask 3 candidates to come to give their 2 2-minute responses to the platform, and then when they get done, to sit back down and they will be replaced by another council candidate. Each of the candidates has been given our platform in advance. The format of this event is that we will have a short talk by someone who lives in Philadelphia and is affected by that issue, and then we will ask each candidate in turn to come up and explain the response to our platform and plans on the issue in question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for each response. Now, because we are in this august church, Arch Street United Methodist Church, this place has become a bastion for social justice, for the dignity of workers and students, and folk from all across the city of Philadelphia. And we are glad that for a little while he is able to be with us today. We want to ask the Reverend Robin Heineke, Senior Pastor of the Arch Street United Methodist Church, to come give us comments and offer blessings on this gathering today.
Good morning and welcome to Arch Street United Methodist Church, the church that's gay-friendly, living wage-friendly, fair funding and full funding for our public schools friendly, racial justice friendly, and today and every day working families friendly. Just want to remind those who seek our vote. I'm a resident of Philadelphia, and Bishop, you forgot to mention the Frankfurt neighborhood where I live. I want to remind those who would seek our vote that power is a gift and a privilege granted by the people. Use it wisely, fairly, and justly. Have a great conversation today, and when it's all said and done, work hard to get the right candidates elected, vote, and then act in your neighborhoods and in your organizations to make their promises a reality. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Heineke, for your leadership in our city and your faithful prophetic witness for justice in our land. So give me 1 second while I set my phone up so we can be on the right time. I need to get the stopwatch ready. All right. Our first issue we're going to begin with this day is the issue of jobs with dignity. We need to have a conversation about good jobs and economic inequality. In Philadelphia, workers are on the march for higher wages and better futures. Thousands of fast food workers have gone on strike. Thousands of airport workers are fighting to raise standards in their industry. And voters from New Jersey to Washington State have declared it's time to raise the minimum wage. Yet as workers bring intense attention to the growing crisis of income inequality, Philadelphia remains the poorest big city in our nation. While the wealthiest corporations have seen their incomes skyrocket, the rest of us are struggling to keep our heads above water. To hear more about the issue of creating good jobs with living wages, let me introduce our first speaker this morning. Andrew Dempsey Miller is a fast food worker who works at McDonald's and earns $7.25 an hour. We're going to ask Mr. Dempsey Miller to come at this time, and he has 3 minutes to address the body and these candidates.
Where I start? 725. It's not enough for a living life. You got a car, you barely can pay car insurance. Car insurance is about $400 a month. I barely see $300 if I'm lucky. That's the most I can see within 2 weeks. So I have a little note, and I think that it pretty much sums this whole thing up. So I'm just going to read it. Our dreams will survive even after we die. Promotion lies in the skies of the excellence tide. cooking the fries, but you only get the minimum pie. My general manager will lounge on the calendar, then deny. That favoritism runs the show on this go. Your hard work is just rolled, swept under the rug. The drug is do what you're told. Don't ask questions, wake up people with a message. Is you're a slave, no pay is unacceptable, our privilege, our dreams. The humans of the highest esteem, living extremely clean as we wise upstream. Know what I mean? We're a team, and winning's our theme. Lil Pay's a scheme, and we're sick of it. We will redeem our dignity.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for starting us off and sharing your story about working at McDonald's trying to survive. To address the need for good jobs and a fair economy that works for all of us, we call on Philadelphia City Council members to take on income inequality and fight for poor and working people. With a poverty rate of 28% in Philadelphia, it's imperative the city directly create jobs, that good jobs, not just jobs, but good jobs, and that corporations doing in business in the city pay workers a living wage and treat workers with respect and dignity. The Working Families Party platform calls for passage of a city minimum wage of $15 an hour to be effective when enabled by the state. Require public projects to employ a high percentage of city residents. Invest in economic development that prioritizes keeping taxpayer dollars in our communities through creating an incubator fund for worker-owned co-ops. Ensure city contracts prioritize creation of family-sustaining jobs. Strong enforcement and continued improvement of the recently passed earned paid sick day legislation, and divest the city pension fund from companies engaging in wage theft and anti-union activity. That's the Working Families agenda for a fair economy. Now we again will ask the candidates to respond. Do you support these proposals? We want to hear your plans to ensure that Philadelphia's economy truly works for all of us. So the candidates will come in the following order. We're going to ask you to come stand at the microphone. First, we will hear from Helen Ginn. Then we will hear from Sherry Cohen. Then we will hear from Tom White. And then we will hear from Isaiah Thomas. We're going to ask the council candidates to please come and take one of the microphones in front of us. And Ms. Ginn, when you're done, Mr. Thomas, if you would take your place at the microphone. Again, to remind the candidates, you have 2 minutes to respond, and if you run long, we will ask you to stop and move on to the next candidate. Ms. Ginn, you are up first.
The high challenge.
You need a, okay.
The high challenge microphone. There we go.
You are welcome to begin.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to listen to the testimony of all of you. My name is Helen Gim, running for City Council at large. And to me, the question of income disparity and economic and wage disparity in our city is not only an economic justice issue, it is a moral one at this time. And just to very quickly invoke the words of the Reverend Martin Luther King, we can have Comcast buildings that can kiss the sky, but in a city, we can't answer a fundamental question that King asked: when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was naked, did you clothe me? And when my sons and daughters asked for economic security, did you respond? In this city today, we cannot honestly say that we are responding. And so I want to talk a lot about how this community has driven the agenda for what is happening today at City Hall. Out of these spaces, out of the spaces that we have fought together, we brought forward this issue of minimum wage. We brought forward the issue of paid sick leave, and that those things coming to City Hall comes out of starting in spaces like this. I've spent 20 years of my life fighting in spaces like this to talk about these things and to talk about not just a minimum wage that will come to contractors and to city workers, but working with folks like at SEIU in the school district, where we talked about it with subcontractors as well, and that the minimum wage and prevailing wage will stand for subcontractors in this city because there are people like you who are fighting for that. I want to talk about how the importance of my answer to the platform is yes, of course, to all of the above, but there's something deeper that's going to happen too. The question of economic justice has to go hand in hand with racial justice in our city as well. And that we need to diversify our labor force. We need to open up our trade to the growing communities that are in this city, to diverse and multilingual, so that our labor force not only reflects the communities, also reflects the communities which fights for them. If there is any question about how hard I fought for the rights of jobs with dignity in this city, look no further than the work that we've done in our public schools, where there is no question that the rights of public school workers and those, our children and those who care for them, are at stake. We have a city and state government that is invested in undoing collective bargaining for teachers and for the Federation of Teachers in particular in our city on our watch. On this watch, we have also seen the stripping away of basic rights, and who has stood up for that? Who has stood by? That's why we formed Parents United for Public Education, so we can reject a punishing narrative that looks at our children as places of profit and exploitation, and strips our schools to the points of deprivation and inequality, and we are rejecting that narrative, and we're pushing forward a framework in which workers and parents and young people in our communities are looked at through a framework of human dignity, justice, and love.
Ms. Debbie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Cohen, you're next.
First, I just want to thank the Working Families Party for putting together this platform. Everyone who worked on it, I just think it's an awesome platform, and we need to be all about the business of making it reality for our city. If we can make this platform reality, we're going to have a different Philadelphia. Are you able to hear me? Yes, okay, all right. So, yeah, I was very happy to be at City Council hearings this past week. I want to thank the 15 Now Coalition for putting on the hearing, for increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I've been campaigning on this issue. I think it's essential to our city. We have, as everyone knows, we're the biggest, we have the largest percentage of poor people in our city than any other large city. Increasing the minimum wage is something we can do that would have a huge impact to our city. $15 an hour, some say, oh, that's a lot of money. You know, it is not a lot of money. Right now, the $7.25 is poverty level wages, and that's unconscionable for people to be working full-time and don't have the dignity of having a pay where they can afford the necessities of life for their families. So we must increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. There's something called the self-sufficiency standard that Pathways PA puts out as to what it really costs to live in Philadelphia. It's not just what is looked at for the federal poverty level. It includes food and transportation and childcare. And they say for a family of 4 to live above poverty in Philly, you have to have a salary of $60,000 for the family bringing in. So this $15, it doesn't even come close to what would be a reasonable living wage in the city of Philadelphia. So I'm in favor of the entire platform, $15 wage, we gotta fight for in the city. This is another example of state control over Philadelphia. Do you know the last time they passed minimum wage, I worked on that, a number of years ago in the mid-2000s. We got it passed? Okay, all right.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Good morning. My name is Tom. Good morning. Well, I am so grateful to be here today with you to talk about these issues, and I'm so grateful and proud to be sharing the stage with these great candidates. Thank you for having me. So, for me, a guiding light in my life has been around a minimum wage, because earning it is not theoretical to me. When I graduated from high school, I didn't have the opportunity to go to college, and I did so poorly in school that I didn't have jobs to beat me down my door either. And so I worked at a Burger King for minimum wage, and I know personally what it's like to try and fill a gas-guzzling truck with gas, pay rent, and try and get by on minimum wage. I've been fortunate through mentoring and hard work and luck to progress through my career, but I've also never forgotten that simple fact. It's how close we all are to those kind of difficulties, and absolutely 725 is not going to cut it. We should not have a single job in this great city, the greatest city in the United States, where folks work 40 hours a week and can't sustain their families and live a proud life and afford their housing and transportation. In my career at American Water, the sole purpose of my job was to secure a respectful workplace for the employees there. There are a number of occasions where I worked on investigations or worked with employees who were being disserved and pushed for a better workplace, a safer workplace, to make sure that folks went home in the same condition that they came in the morning and got the respect that they deserved in the workplace. And so I would work tirelessly to improve not only the living wage here in Philadelphia, but the respect and dignity that should go into every working person in this city, and to bring more jobs into this city. Our unemployment rate is unacceptably high. Our poverty rate, as we've well understood, is inexcusably high and morally high. I will work tirelessly to improve those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. White.
First of all, good morning, and thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Also, thank you to Andrew. Andrew came up and talked about the importance of us raising the minimum wage. Andrew, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 26.
Andrew's 26 years old. And I commend Andrew for what he's doing, because I know a lot of Andrews here in the city of Philadelphia. I know a lot of young men who have choices. And I commend Andrew for choosing to take a job and do things the right way, because there are a lot of Andrews and Isaiahs in the city of Philadelphia who, when offered the opportunity to choose between a job and to choose between illegal activity in the streets, often we go that direction. And one of the reasons we go that direction is because the minimum wage is so low. It's very tempting for people who come from our neighborhoods and our communities to deviate away from having that traditional job and put ourselves in a position where we can generate more revenue participating in illegal activities, but it also sets us up for this injustice that we see of mass incarceration. So it's a setup, it's a trap. Since I started the campaign trail, I've been fighting for this issue of 15 now, and I've been catching a lot of slack because of it. But I think it's one thing to say, I'm for raising the minimum wage. It's another thing to say, this is how we do it. That's important. Because when I look you in the face and I say, I want your vote, I want you to support me, I want you to understand that I care about your issues and I'm going to fight for them, it can't be just lip service. It can't be just me standing here with a microphone saying, please choose me. Then I go to City Hall and I have no tangible plan for how can we realistically increase the minimum wage and find a solution that we can pass through council. And that's important. And so for me, this issue of the minimum wage is something I'm passionate about, not just because it's imperative that we find a new sector to create new jobs, because manufacturing is no longer in our city. The suburbs are very competitive as far as who can operate a business in there, what jobs they can provide. And so for me, this issue of the minimum wage is something that I'm passionate about, I care about, I will fight for it, and I plan to unveil a platform that tells you how we can raise the minimum wage without making sure that no one loses jobs and businesses don't lose and leave the city. Thank you for having me.
Just a reminder, there should not be anything being handed out at the end of the sanctuary. Ma'am, there should not be anything being handed out in the sanctuary. There's no petitioning, no signs, no anything in the sanctuary. There will be space for that downstairs later on, but that should not be occurring here in the sanctuary right now. We are now preparing to move to our next issue, which is a very important issue here in Philadelphia. If we want to overcome the plantation economy that we have, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support the children and youth in the city of Philadelphia by providing them an excellent and quality education. The next issue we're going to discuss today is education. Everyone in this room knows that education cuts are inflicting permanent damage on children throughout Pennsylvania. Here in Philadelphia, this is nothing short of a crisis. In the last 2 years, over $1 billion has been cut from basic education budget. These funding cuts are staggering for public education and have fallen disproportionately on Philadelphia. At the same time, massive and mostly unregulated charter school expansion has come at a huge cost to the district, with nearly 30% of district funds going to charter schools. We are at a decisive moment for the future of public education. We will either fulfill the basic idea that all children can get a quality education at their neighborhood public school, or we will proceed down a path of privatization and inequity in education. Now I want to introduce a few speakers who are going to come and tell us about their first-hand experience with this crisis. The first is John Coates, who is a teacher in the Philadelphia School District. The next is Nassim Bey, who is a student in the Philadelphia School District. And the third is Tia Philpott-Hinton, who is a parent in the Philadelphia School District. We're going to ask them to come up and please take a microphone. Each of you will have 3 minutes to share your story here with all of us gathered, but more importantly to these candidates that need to hear what real Philadelphians want for their city. Please. We're going to begin with Mr. Coates, then Mr. Bang, and then Ms. Philpott-Hinton. You may begin.
Good morning. My name is John Coates. I'm a proud PFT member. Don't want to bore you with my background. Just want to tell you a short story about why we need fair funding for public education. I've been with the school district for 29 years. The last 2 years with Eleanor Cope Emlyn Elementary School in East Mount Airy. My first 27 years I spent at the M. Hall Stanton Elementary School in North Philadelphia. I started in 1986. I went back to the school where it all began. I'm a proud product of the Philadelphia public school system, a system that used to care about children and the education of real Philadelphians. My time at Stanton, I've seen 17 different principals come and go, 16 different regional superintendents come and go. My concern then and now is, with the threat of 20 school closures in this coming June, is what are they going to do to help educate our community and keep people in Philadelphia? What are they going to do to help make Philadelphia the proud city that it once was, with pride in our great educational system? I'm a product of North Philadelphia. When they say no good things come out of North Philadelphia, I can stand here today and say, yes, they do. When they say that nothing good comes out of Philadelphia public school system, I can stand here and show you, yes, they do. Here I stand, and not just me, this young man, this young lady, we're all a product of this institution. We need to make sure that public education and public students are given a fair shot at life and liberty, just like everybody else. We need to level the playing field and give us back the resources and the supports that we once had that made us this great institution years ago. And it's a simple plan of all of us coming and sitting down at the table and sharing our thoughts and our wisdom and getting back to what we used to do. Thank you for coming out this morning. I hope that this is your platform, because definitely this is our platform.
Hi, my name is Nassim. I go to Kensington and Performing Arts High School. And like, when I'm in school, and I like talk to different people, they always complain about how in class, like either with, like when they use textbooks, and they wonder like, why is it all destroyed? And I can tell them like, it's low budget, or they took away money from the school. And like, when I'm talking to them, they just be wondering, like, just many different things. So they be either leaving school early because they don't care about school no more, and they have other things to do. Like, they be out there saying, oh, they're gonna make money, or this, that, and the third. So when I'm in school, I try to keep them in school. So like, just tell them better things about it, tell them that they could get an education. Like, my question would be like, to wonder like, what are they going to do to help benefit public schools and students who would need help, students who would be struggling.
Good morning. My name is Kia Hinton. I have children who attend public schools, and one of my children, my daughter, she attends a charter school, and then my other two are in regular public school. And so this issue of how we're funding our schools is very dear to me. When my 14-year-old, when she was in the 2nd grade, she had a new teacher, an inexperienced teacher, right? And so there were 30 plus students in that classroom, and that teacher had a really difficult time with class management and just really making sure that everyone got what they needed. My daughter got left back that year, and so we're talking about that. We're talking about my daughter that's in the 10th grade now. Since September, she hasn't had a geometry teacher, right? But September, October, November, December. December she gets one. February, he's gone, so now she's back to not having a geometry teacher. And just some of the stuff that I've seen when I was in school is, you know, you see parents who are angry, right? And parents come to school and they're like cursing out the teachers, they're cursing out the staff, and then people are like, I don't want my kid to go to this school, right? And so my take on it is, you know, we have these other issues that's outside of the school that comes within the school. And our teachers aren't, not even equipped, but that's not their job to deal with those other things. Our teachers are equipped to teach. And so when you have these other things outside of the school that comes in the school, and then, you know, taking away a nurse and then a counselor who can address those needs, you know, it's really crippling our students, and it's criminal. It's criminal because we're robbing our students of their future, we're robbing them of the resources that they need. And so we need people who are going to really address the issues, not start a whole nother school system that's not even addressing the needs of those students, the needs of those families or those communities. And so that's where the real issue lies. The issue isn't about, oh, we need a whole nother school system. It's really about addressing the needs of the most vulnerable students. And so, you know, I have it in me to be able to go and, you know, try to put my kid in another school in an environment where we have more parents who are more involved, and, you know, their income may be a little higher and they can do a little bit more. But then what about these other kids over here who don't have that? And so that's my concern as well. Because if these students, if those students over there, they're not getting what they need, then that means they grow up and we see incidents like we had yesterday, right? And they prey on the ones who do have people who are investing and helping students. And so we can't just be worried about mine. We really have to be worried about all of them. And so I think that's why funding our schools have become such a huge issue here, because it transcends all of these issues that we're talking about when we're talking about jobs with dignity, good housing, the over-criminalization of our communities, right? And so that's just my stance, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Baird, Ms. Philpott. You may take your seats. To make this a little interesting, we're going to have a little bit of an interactive section before we begin to question our candidates today. So if you are here and you are alumni of the Philadelphia School District, would you please stand to your feet?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. If you have children in the Philadelphia school system, would you please stand to your feet? Grandchildren, nephews, nieces, neighborhood kids that go to Philadelphia public schools, would you stand to your feet? If you're here today and you want to see a strong Philadelphia public school system, please stand to your feet. You may be seated. So I have to admit I am biased. I am a product of the Philadelphia public school system. I went to Anna Blakiston Day School, Ada Lewis Middle School, 86 Middle School, and then I finally graduated from Abraham Lincoln High School in 1987. I take seriously the issues of education because reversing this crisis will require bold leadership, policy changes, but also understanding that supporting our children in providing quality education is not a business issue, it is a moral issue. Our Working Families Agenda for Education is modeled on the work that PCAPS has led here in Philadelphia to fight against the decimation of our public schools. Philadelphia schools have faced immoral cuts over the last 4 years, coupled with a privatization effort by corporate interests that have left too many schools lacking fundamental services and too many children without quality public education. So our platform requires the following: that city council members advocate for Philadelphia schools to be returned to local control. That they work with labor and community partners and faith partners to create a plan for school district governance and a structure for a school board. That the city provide universal pre-K for all 3- and 4-year-olds in the city of Philadelphia. That they implement a community schools model that puts public schools at the center of our neighborhoods, where families and children can receive community-based services. That we regulate publicly funded, privately operated charter schools. And that we reform our tax system so it provides much needed revenue for our public schools. This is the Working Families Agenda for Education. Now we want to hear from each of the candidates. Do you support these proposals, and what is your agenda for education? We are going to begin in the following order. First, we're going to ask Mr. Isaiah Thomas to come, then Ms. Sherry Cohen, then Ms. Helen Ginn, and then finally Mr. Tom White. Please come and take the microphones in that order. You have 2 minutes to respond. And just a reminder, when you see me stand up, that means that your time is up. Thank you very much.
I was in the back of my head, so I'm gonna see you stand up real fast. I'm gonna jump right into it. Public education is an issue that I'm very passionate about. People stood up and cheered when he said, how many people want local control? It was a lot of ruckus. To be honest with you, I was the first candidate to run for city council at large and call for local control. I ran in 2011, and when I ran in 2011, everybody cared about government corruption, jobs, and economic development, and those things are important. I'm not saying they're not important, but I ran on the education platform in 2011 when education did not poll over 50% like it's polling right now. It wasn't a popular thing to do. It wasn't a message that transcended across the city of Philadelphia, but I did it because I care about schools and I care about our young people. Right now, everybody's going to talk about education because education polls over 50%, but we got to make sure we decipher the people who truly have the best interests of our children in mind compared to those who are just running on the issue because the polls are everything. It's a big difference. Now, this is the next thing. I'm a product of the school district of Philadelphia. Born and raised in the city of Philadelphia, I've lived here my whole life, went to Elwood Elementary School, Conwell Middle School, graduated from Franklin High School, 6 brothers, 3 younger sisters, all of us products of the public school district of Philadelphia. My father's a retired teacher from the school district of Philadelphia. Currently, right now, I'm on the board of PIAA District 12. I'm also the president of the Coaches Association. So for me, I wear the public league banner very, 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 very proudly. It is something I'm very passionate about. It is the reason I ran for office of city council, the office of city council at large in 2011. And I just want you to contemplate this. I called for a local control in 2011. Imagine if I would have won in 2011 and we would have had local control then. What would be the difference in our schools over the last 3 or 4 years had we jumped out in front of this issue when we knew federal stimulus money would be drying up and we knew the government would not find money to replace this federal stimulus money we lost? Where would we be right now? So my challenge to you is don't make the mistake that we made in 2011. We have to put the right people in office. We have to have the right people on city council, because if we care about our kids and our young people, it's our obligation to get it right this time.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Ms. Cohen.
Yes, so I was also very happy as a candidate in 2011 to be pushing for local control in the school district with Isaiah. So it was great that we were both speaking up for that back then. But, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, education is such an important issue in our city. I'm proud to be a graduate of our Philly Public Schools. I went to Joseph Pennell Elementary, Julia Ward Howe Elementary, Joseph Wagner Junior High, and a graduate of Philadelphia High School for Girls. So, now back in the day when I was going to school, I remembered that our local schools had classes at night for adults. There was there was study for the GRE, but there was also, you could take a class if you wanted to learn how to sew with a sewing machine, you wanted to do wallpapering. I mean, the schools were places to go for classes for adults. And that's what this whole community schools vision today is partly about, is that we need our schools to be hubs of our community. So I'm totally for, local control, universal pre-K, regulation and control over our charter schools, and providing the tax revenue. That's what you want from City Council. And actually, let me say that until we have an elected school board in Philly, the people you elect to City Council have got to be champions for public education, because they are your representatives on education in City Council, should be testifying before the SRC. You know, when we get our own school board, well, then we'll have, and if it's elected, then we'll have our own representation. But right now, City Council people should be spokespeople on all issues regarding education. So I will be a fighter for education for everyone here on City Council.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen.
Hi, everybody. So I wanted to talk a little bit about myself. I mean, obviously, I grew up, like many of you, the daughter of immigrants, and for me, public spaces were the essential places in which I found a place for community and opportunity. And clearly, our public schools are where the fight for today stands. It's why I'm running for City Council. It's what I believe in. I started out as a teacher in the public schools. I'm a mother of 3 children. As Isaiah said, lots of people are going to come and talk to you about education. But it's not just what they're going to say that they will do for you. I ask you to consider what people have done. And on this issue, I think that I have a significant track record working with people, not just to stand up on these issues, but the problem with our city and the problem with politics in this city in general is that we need to understand that when people go into these back rooms, whatever they are and whatever they may look like, who's going to turn to a puddle of mush when they're facing off against the issues that you care about? We went up against the parking authority and got $15 million in our schools. We went up and took off the BRT patronage workers and made sure $5 million went back into our schools. We went up against the locally controlled we went up against the SRC, Bill Green, James Nevels, all those people who came in, made promises that they couldn't keep, we went toe-to-toe with them, stood up and faced them down and talked about our children and how our schools are actually going to look, what's happening in our classrooms. When they moved to strip collective bargaining away from teachers, when they took away 4,000 jobs out of our schools, by the way, hitting mostly women in this city, when they took away women's jobs, nurses, counselors, librarians, teaching forces, that impacts the economic sustainability of women in this city, of households all across the city. We've got 39% of our children in poverty. Who is going to stand up? Who has stood up? Who has shown? All of us have done that. We stood up at Central High School and we ran a governor out of Central High School, and then in November, we took him on and we ran that governor out of Harrisburg. But that did not come alone. That came with all of us working together, and I'll be your fighter in City Council to make sure our schools, our people are the ones that are represented. And I won't back down.
Mr. Ryan, before you begin, we have been joined by Councilman W. Wilson Good and Councilwoman Vondell Reynolds Brown. We're going to ask them to come to the microphone at this moment. We are talking about the issue of education, and after Mr. Wyatt goes, we'll ask Councilman Good and then Councilwoman Vondell Reynolds Brown to go. They will each have 2 minutes to respond to the Working Families Party platform on education. Mr. Wyatt, you're now.
Thank you. Welcome. So there are 2 people and 2 words that more than anything else animate the reason I'm standing here today, and I'm working tirelessly to represent you in City Council. 2 people, my son and my daughter. They will be walking to 12th and Federal. They will be going to my 2 favorite words, neighborhood school, Andrew Jackson Elementary. It's Andrew Jackson Elementary. It's a wonderful neighborhood school, and I'm proud to be in that catchment, and that's where our young people are going to go. And we've worked tirelessly with many people in this room, and with many parents, non-parents, business people, and members of different congregations in bringing books to the library, and bringing a more productive and safer schoolyard, and building better places of learning at Andrew Jackson. And so, but before I got on a little roll there, I wanted to talk about an issue that is also animating this, is also problem solving. My friend Isaiah Thomas said it's one thing to be passionate about an issue, it's another to have a solution. Every day, 200,000 Philadelphians get up in the morning, they get their coffee, they get on a train, they get on a bus, they get in a car, and they leave the city for employment elsewhere. It's more than 1/3 of our workforce. That leaves working families in this city here to hold the bag. We need to get businesses back into the city, and we need them paying their fair share so that we can create more revenue for what? For our schools. And that's a plan that you'll see on my website, and that's a plan that I'm the only one talking about. And so, community schools, yes. Universal pre-K, yes. Local control, yes. And stronger oversight for charter schools, yes. And putting charter schools that are not effective out of business, yes. Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask Councilman Good and Councilwoman Reynolds Brown to please come take microphones. Councilman Good, you are first, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Excuse my tardiness, I was somewhere where I had to be. Let me start with just straight facts. I'm the youngest at-large member of council. I've been so since January 3rd, 2000. My record on public education is clear. When we started the School Reform Commission back in the early 2000s, we moved the share of property taxes from 55% to 58%. As we moved toward one of our first crises in the school district in 2007, it was my bill, the Good Public Education Reinvestment Bill, that moved that share from 58% to 60%. So it was my bill that actually created the 60-40 split, and I was glad to work with Helen on that bill. Since that time, this City Council, over the last 5 years, has increased funding to public schools with over $360 million. We have been there. We have to stay there. In terms of what my plans are long-term, I want to raise property taxes, but not on homeowners. I want to raise property taxes on commercial property owners, because as we did reassessment, we gave the commercial property owners a break and shifted the burden to homeowners. So we need to take care of our school kids. We need to fund it, but we need to do that by taxing commercial property at a higher rate than residential property. It's going to take a constitutional amendment to do that. It's going to take 2 or 3 years. Until that time, we should target the use of occupancy tax. I voted for that within the last couple of years. When it's come up, I will vote for it again. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My full name is Blonda Reynolds Brown. I come to you as Vice Chair of City Council Committee on Education and as a former teacher, an educator forever. And as Councilman Good has indicated, his record on education is clear. We can go back as far as first sterling the debate about uniforms being in school. That was Blonda Reynolds Brown resolution that we should move to have uniforms in school. Met with a lot of opposition, but at the end of the day, we know when children come not worried about what they dress and worried more about what they need to learn, life is better. It was Blonda Reynolds Brown idea to take sodas out of the schools for all the reasons we know around the appalling rise of obesity. And after much debate with the School Reform Commission 4 years later, sodas should actually not be in the school now. If that's the case, then that's a violation. But it was my idea again that we should take sodas out of schools because of the alarming rise of obesity. I'm of the view that we need to find new, innovative, non-traditional, recurring revenues for schools. And some ideas work, and some ideas do not. 2 ideas that did not work. I put forth the idea, the legislation to say we should do advertising on school buses, because there are already school districts in the Commonwealth that advertise on their school buses, and those dollars go to the local school district. In Philadelphia, we learned after hearings that 75+% of the school buses are leased. So that idea had to go on a shelf and sit there. I also then put forth the idea that we should extend, please don't misunderstand me, we should extend bar hours so that we can collect additional revenue and have those dollars go to the schools. After meeting with the police commissioner, which was about 3 years ago, and learning about our spike in crime, we decided to put that idea on the shelf because it was not a good idea. Last June, it was Blonda Reynolds Brown that led the friendly debate, quietly, diplomatically, behind closed doors, on filling that $50 million budget gap for the school district. So my record is clear, and I'm of the view that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. I've been there for the schools, I am for universal pre-K, been for that, had hearings on that more than 10, 12 years ago. Asking for your support again as we return, because for every 100 young people that enter 9th grade, at the end of those 48 months, 45 of those young people are not graduating. Those are the numbers. We have to do better. Thank you.
Thank you for all the candidates for their report back to us. And thank you to our speakers that spoke so eloquently about the concerns and needs for schools in the city of Philadelphia. We're now moving to our third issue on our platform, housing as a human right. Housing is a basic human right and human need. We currently, that's right, you can clap for that. If you've ever didn't have a roof over your mouth, you'll know how deeply it is and how painful it is to survive from day to day. We currently have a shortage of 60,000 affordable housing units here in the city of Philadelphia. We need city council members who are ready to take on this challenge directly, forthrightly, and with bold courage and determination. To hear more about this important human right and an issue of human dignity, we're going to ask Ruth Torres, a member of the Women's Community Revitalization Project, who has been working with the Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities, to come and share our story and experience. We welcome Ms. Torres. Ms. Torres, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ruth Torres, and Hi, my name is Ruth Torres, and I'm a board member of the Women's Community Revitalization Project. We help families with children get on their feet by providing them with affordable housing. We are a member of the Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities, a coalition that is organized to win more money for our city's housing trust fund. Our coalition's development without displacement campaign is concerned that rising housing costs are going to make it too expensive for people to stay in their neighborhoods. Personally, I live on North Fish Street between Cumberland and Huntington, and I can see the development coming from south near Girard. My neighborhood has been neglected for years. There are a lot of abandoned buildings and vacant lots. My neighbors and I want to see buildings go up, but we are worried that big developers are going to come in and make it too expensive to live there. While it's nice to see new development happening, I also want to make sure that my neighbors and I aren't pushed out of the neighborhoods by rising housing costs. I support more affordable, accessible housing and urban agriculture in our city. If elected, will you vote for legislation that increases funding for our housing trust fund?
Thank you, Ms. Torres, for sharing your story with us and calling us to the importance of the issue of housing as a human right. The Working Families Party platform to address the need for affordable housing units in Philadelphia, we asked the candidates for Philadelphia City Council to commit to policies that create more affordable housing options in the city. The platform is as follows. Find a sustainable revenue stream for the Housing Trust Fund to support community development without forcing residents out. Enact and enforce an inclusionary zoning ordinance requiring builders to include affordable units in all rental projects. Foster the development of housing projects owned by limited equity co-ops and community land trusts. That's the Working Families Plan for Housing as a Human Right. Now we ask again the candidates to respond. Do you support these proposals? What steps would you take as a member of Philadelphia City Council to address the affordable housing unit shortage? For this topic, we will begin in the following order. We will begin with Mr. Isaiah Thomas. We will ask Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds-Brown to come next. We will then ask Tom White, Councilman Good, Helen Ginn, and then finally we will have Sherry Cohen. Please come in that order.
Simple. Yes, definitely. No questions asked, no problem with it. I see this as a threefold issue, honestly. The first issue is transparency, right? So we do want to commend some of the legislation that's already been presented to try to deal with this issue of affordable housing, but yet we know we need to do more. And when we're talking about communication, we need to make sure that we do a better job, that people in neighborhoods know what their options are, what's going on, and what could they do about this issue of affordable housing as taxes begin to increase. So transparency is the first thing. The second thing is advocacy, right? Because we're all at-large councilmatic people, so a lot of these issues that folks talk about within the affordable housing world comes within your district. And so for us, and for me specifically, I plan to be an advocate for affordable housing, working with neighborhoods and families to make sure that we're doing what we have to do to keep people in their neighborhoods. The third thing is trust. I think trust is very important. And when we're talking about trust, what we're talking about is putting people in office and putting people in leadership positions who are not going to stand in front of us and say one thing and then behind closed doors do something different. We have to put people in office that we trust for one simple fact. When you talk about this issue of housing, a lot of times once we recognize that if you're not fully engaged in the political realm or the political process, by the time you recognize it, well, guess what? It's already too late. Gentrification is happening, buildings are coming up, people are being displaced from their neighborhoods and homes, and essentially citizens can't afford to stay in neighborhoods that they've been living in their entire life. And that's sad. It's actually a catastrophe. Also, I want to recognize that these three things are pivotal if we want to make sure that we have leadership in position to have our best interests in mind, and people who are going to advocate and put us in the best possible position for us to continue to address this issue. Thank you.
Good morning, Blondar Reynolds Brown. My answer is absolutely yes. It is a sad commentary that we have initiatives that get online and we haven't been thoughtful enough or strategic enough in making it mandatory. Mandatory that if you're receiving any kind of city subsidy for housing, then it is mandatory that you should have affordable housing units. And I would take it a step further. I believe it should be mandatory to include child care centers as well in many of these housing developments. Because parents who are working every day need safe, quality, typically on-site child care that's close to home, number one. Number two, it was Councilwoman Jamie Blackwell and I who wrote the Housing Trust Fund legislation. We are the authors of that bill, so it's a no-brainer for me every year when we are trying to figure out ways where we can increase that fund. And lastly, in City Council, you can't be everything to everybody. There are 17 City Council committees, which means each committee focuses on very narrow issues. When it comes to housing, I am no expert, and I'm very clear about that which I know, and I'm exceedingly clear about that which I don't know. When it comes to housing and community development in Philadelphia City Council, I look at Councilwoman Maria Quinones Sanchez, who is one of the principal authors behind the Land Bank, and I look at Councilwoman Jamie Blackwell, who we know has made her life centered around housing for the homeless, and Councilman W. Wilson Good, because it is he and I who make it also clear that if you're getting city subsidies, then you better make sure there's opportunity in there for women and people of color. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes, and yes. We are in a city with 60,000 children living in deep poverty, which means their family is not making more than $10,000 a year. This is an urgent matter that we need to address through every single angle, and one of them most certainly is affordable housing. And I will work tirelessly with the council members in the districts, and as eloquently spoken by the councilwoman, the other members who are leaders in this area, to work hard to drive not just economic development, equitable economic development. Thank you.
Good morning again. Let me further introduce myself. My name is Wilson Good. I'm also a founding board member of a group called Local Progress, which started as 12 council people from around the country, Seattle, San Diego, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and has grown to 400 municipal officials in 40 different states. And we are all self-identified progressives. Our two major campaigns are around good jobs and around affordable housing. And so I'm trying to make up some time by talking about question number 1 and question number 3 at the same time. I happen to be national chair of the Good Jobs campaign, which took me to Seattle to fight for the $15 minimum wage there. I'm also the author here of the city's living wage and benefit standard. That is part of what makes housing more affordable, when we actually have more income equality. Now, on the issue of housing and affordability, it's already been said that this council has stood up more than once in creating the Housing Trust Fund and then expanding the amount of money that can go toward the Housing Trust Fund. But a lot of my work and how I actually became involved in Local Progress was I was at a responsible banking conference. So I've done a lot about forcing the private sector to invest in economically disenfranchised neighborhoods. And so we actually track what's happening in terms of mortgages and home improvement loans and other loans from our depository banks. And so what we want to do is begin to force those banks to invest more in our neighborhoods, to invest more in those who are economically disenfranchised. We're also looking at the idea of a public bank. And some of my colleagues from around the country are looking at public banks and other institutions like that that will buy up mortgages from those banks who are just trying to make profit. And then lastly, we've looked at the model of community development financial institutions. Those people who specialize in how to finance stuff within those neighborhoods that don't have the type of access to capital and credit that they need. So I've been in this fight from a number of different angles, from trying to help people afford things by raising their wages and benefits, and also by creating government programs that subsidize it, and also by making sure the private sector is held accountable for doing its fair share as part of the community. Thank you.
So I've spent 20 years working in Philadelphia Chinatown, which has fought long and hard for both self-determination and also the right to fight off economic development, so-called economic development initiatives that have no benefit to many of the community members who live in that community, particularly for low-income, working-class, immigrant community members, fighting to hold on to housing, and that the issue of housing is a central issue. So I'm going to go through a couple of things. One, I think we need to expand the resources that we need to have affordable housing in our city. So the land bank was a hugely important venture that was fought for and potentially a transformative venture, but we have to hold it accountable to actually do exactly what it set out to do. We need to create, it needs to create affordable, equitable housing across the city. We need to expand inclusionary zoning so that we can finally have that in our city and make sure that our communities are well served. We also want to hold on to what we've got. I mean, one of the hard things that we're dealing with schools is that schools are tied very closely to property taxes. And when we look at rising property taxes, when we look at delinquency in our city, we have to be very thoughtful that we want to encourage growth, but we want to keep people in their homes and in their communities. And so we need to have policies that take care of programs that help people with rising property taxes, delinquency. We need counseling programs, and thank goodness for the Philadelphia Unemployment Project, which was so important during the mortgage foreclosure crisis as well. So we want to support those kinds of ventures so that as our city grows and expands, that people don't get shut out of their own homes. And then the final thing I want to say is that we do have homes that are affordable in our city, but the vast majority of them are in deplorable conditions. Let's face it, if you can afford a house in the city, sometimes the houses that we're looking at and the choices that people have are among the worst. And it is absolutely unconscionable for people to live in substandard housing. So we need to have council people who are working with L&I, who are working with the Fair Housing Commission to make sure that our houses and our communities reach standard appropriate places of human dignity for people to live. And we want to be really thoughtful that whoever gets a rental license in this city lives up to the fact that that rental place is a home that is habitable as well.
Yes, hi, I'm Sherry Cohen. I'm a tenant rights attorney. So every day I've been going to court representing low-income tenants against slum landlords and landlord-tenant court. So I see up close the lies that landlords tell tenants. You have 10 minutes, you have to get out of your house. Or, yeah, I'm still working on that heater and it's halfway through the winter and people have no heat. People do not know their rights, they don't know their resources. We need a lot more protection for tenants in the city. We need full funding of our Housing Trust Fund. You know, because the Housing Trust Fund is to go to help basic systems repairs for homeowners in need to keep up the standard of your home. Also, costs for back rent or utility charges to prevent homelessness. But also on the issue of renters, there are some specific things that I want to put out there. We need ordinances here in Philly that other cities have. There's a just cause eviction ordinance that we need to be fighting for in the city. That means that a landlord can only evict you for a reason that is stated in the ordinance. I want to introduce and get past this legislation. This will protect a lot of renters. The other thing, you can look it up, just cause eviction. You have to have a just cause, a specific reason that's enumerated in the ordinance for the landlord to be able to evict. Another thing is rent stabilization. In Philly, we have no control over how much a landlord can increase the rent, you know, from one lease to the next lease. Other cities have done this. They put some rent stabilization in, so a landlord can only increase the amount of rent a certain percentage each year. This will help protect our communities against gentrification and help out renters. Also, we need to protect renters by being able to provide.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, to make repairs in your own home, it's called abatement of code violations. If the landlord is refusing to make repairs, we can authorize the city to make the repairs after notice to the landlord and put a lien on that home. Therefore, we can help get these repairs made.
Thank you, Ms. Torres, and for each of the candidates for addressing the issue of housing in our city. The next issue we're going to talk about is the issue of mass incarceration, restorative justice, and the Philadelphia criminal justice system. Let me begin by saying it's been a rough week in Philadelphia in this system. And not only do we want to acknowledge the passing of an officer that served well, but we also want to acknowledge the deaths of people all across the city who have been killed by violence. I wonder if we might just take a moment while we are in this sanctuary to have a moment of silence and reflection on these issues. Amen. While we are deeply conflicted by what all has happened here in Philadelphia, the reality is that we need to have a serious conversation about how criminal justice is meted out in the city of Philadelphia. Let's be perfectly blunt. Everyone in this room knows that the system discriminates against people of color. It has been proven over and over again. The statistics prove it. The targeting of people of color prove it, and it has to end. This issue of systemic racism that exists in this particular system breaks up and destroys families, heightens poverty, and tears apart communities. Today to speak on this issue is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, Senior Pastor of the Mother Bethel AME Church, Clergy Caucus Co-Chair of Power, and the facilitator, one of the main facilitators of the MLK DARE Coalition. Dr. Tyler, you have 3 minutes.
The last time that members of Power were together in this sanctuary, we were here on the night of the non-decision in the city of Ferguson. We watched live on CNN in this sanctuary. Our hearts were broken, and we then went to the streets and began walking with young people, many of whom we were meeting for the first time, to articulate that Black lives matter. This past week, the Department of Justice, while stopping short of bringing an indictment against Darren Wilson, officer involved in the killing of Mike Brown, brought a scathing report against the racist culture of the Ferguson Police Department. The President of the United States added on by saying that Ferguson is not an isolated incident. Let me say it in my own words, the racial bias in the police departments across our country is as American as apple pie. This week in the city of Philadelphia, it will receive its own report card from the Department of Justice. And from what I hear through the grapevine, it will not be a favorable report. And that's ironic given the fact that our own chief of police has been tapped to lead the President's task force on 21st century policing. The case of Brandon Tate Brown, shot and killed on December 15th, lifts up several important issues that we have to deal with. A lack of transparency, a lack of accountability, a lack of available information, the fact that the department was willing to share information, including video footage, with civilians who had no involvement in the case at all, before it would give it to the Police Advisory Commission chairperson, says a great deal about the state of dysfunction in our current system today. So I thought that I would just lift up something from today's newspaper. Bishop Royster asked me to bring real stories, and I want to thank Reverend Greg Holster for bringing this to my attention, what's in the daily news today. 10 of the largest payouts of persons who've been violated by police in the city of Philadelphia made it to the paper. Only 10, and I only lift up just a few of them to give context for today. Stephen Moore, part-time water ice vendor, was lounging in his bedroom on November 9, 2011, when an alarm went off alerting him the front door had been opened. Moore, who was unarmed, went to investigate. Officer Larry Shields had been dispatched to the property for a report of a burglary in progress. Shields said the door was open and cracked when he entered. Shields said he saw Moore advancing and making a threatening move toward his waist. Shields fired, striking Moore in the chest. Moore survived. Settlement $2.5 million. Jonathan Pickett of Langhorne was walking down North Philadelphia Street on February 4th, 2013, when officers approached with their guns drawn and ordered him to raise his hands, according to court documents. Officers put Pickett, who was unarmed, in the back seat of a police vehicle. As Pickett sat in the back seat, an unidentified officer shot Pickett in the stomach. Pickett survived. Settlement $1.25 million. It's probably assumed that that officer is still on the streets today. Vincent Hall was standing outside work on North 53rd Street on the afternoon of May 24th, 2012, when Officer Donald Ryder rolled up on a police vehicle. Ryder called to Hall saying, "Come here." Hall turned to alert his employer, and as he turned back to face the officer, Ryder fired, shooting Hall in the chest. Hall, who had been unarmed, survived. Settlement, $850,000. These are only 3 of 10 cases that are listed, and the 10 represent more than 10 episodes of this. Let me simply say this, that the attitude that says police policy is simply trust us does not work anymore. We need a policy. This is not about individual police officers. This is not about the chief. This is about policy. This is about principle. And we need a police force in Philadelphia that serves and protects all the people, not one that protects some and serves the other with violence, fear, and intimidation.
A little while ago, when we were talking about education, I asked those to stand that were from Philadelphia Public Schools, had children in Philadelphia Public Schools, graduated from Philadelphia Public Schools. I'm scared to ask the question about how many of us in this room have ever been stopped and frisked by the Philadelphia Police Department. If you have, would you stand to your feet? You may be seated. This is a very volatile issue here in the city of Philadelphia, and has been brought to light by the actions that took place in Ferguson, Missouri. Although we have known that this has gone on for a long time, it did not raise to prominence. You know, Fannie Lou Hamer said one time, sometimes you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired. We should not have to walk through the streets of Philadelphia in fear. We should not have to walk through the fear that just because you are black in Philadelphia, that you are going to get stopped by the Philadelphia Police Department. So today, the Working Families Party has a platform to address this issue. And I want to make sure that we clearly hear what we are calling for today. The first, we want to create an independent review board that investigates police-involved shootings and complaints of police brutality that the Philadelphia Police Department cannot block. The second thing is that we demand an immediate end to stop and frisk policies here in the city of Philadelphia. The fourth thing is that we want an increase in funds and programs for drug rehabilitation and post-release counseling for jobs, housing, and other support services. And we want to expand non-custodial punishment by use of house arrest and work release programs. We now want to hear from our council manager candidates. Please tell us where you stand on these proposals and what you would do to help fix Philadelphia's criminal justice system as it relates to mass incarceration and restorative justice. I'm going to ask the following three candidates to come forward and take the microphone. Sherry Cohen, Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, and Mr. Isaiah Thomas. Please come and take a microphone and go in that order.
Everything we have talked about today is a crisis. We have on every issue. We have an education crisis, we have a housing crisis, we have a mass incarceration crisis, we have a crisis of stop and frisk. Our current mayor's term is ending, and he campaigned on the platform of stop and frisk when he was running the first time for election, and I spoke out against that. I was chair then of the Civil Rights Committee of the Philadelphia Bar Association. We challenged that. But we'd like to see that happen in City Council. We need City Council to be standing up and looking at everything happening in the criminal justice system. Stop and frisk, sentencing, policing, because there is racialized bias throughout. And it's just totally outrageous. You know, the number, the rate of police killings of African American men today is nearly the same as the rate of lynchings in years past. You know, more African Americans are under correctional control today than were enslaved in 1850, 10 years before the Civil War began. There just has been an explosion of incarceration that has been criminalizing our communities, and we have got to stand up and put a stop to it. Stop and frisk, then there's broken windows policing. That's the type of policing you see somebody standing around on the corner and the police go over and start asking questions, stopping and frisking and all of that. That's what happened to Eric Garner in New York for selling loose cigarettes. You saw the police jump him and kill him. And this is something prevalent in our Philadelphia Police Department, and we have to stop that as well. Broken windows policing, we have to bring to an end. So we need restorative justice throughout our criminal justice system. We need to make Philadelphia a restorative justice city in everything we do. Whether it's young people should not be being tried as adults. We need an end to harsh sentencing and an end to the death penalty.
Thank you. As a former teacher, facts and figures matters. Here's why stop and frisk does not work. According to a recent report filed by the American Civil Liberties Union, in the first half of 2014, 2,519 pedestrian stops were done in Philadelphia. 37% of them were made without reasonable suspicion. Furthermore, of the 433 frisks that were conducted, 39% were found to have occurred without reasonable suspicion. The statistical evidence clearly shows that stop and frisk does not work and is inappropriate in the city of Philadelphia. So, as we look to make decisions about our next mayoral candidate, we want to pose that question to them as well. Where do you stand on the issue of stop and frisk? Secondly, with respect to the Police Advisory Board, it was Councilman Curtis Jones that sponsored that bill. I proudly co-sponsored Councilman Jones' measure, bill number 140643, to replace the Police Advisory Board and replace it with a Police Advisory Commission made up of stakeholders and young people and stakeholders and young people. And then lastly, I think it was Thurgood Marshall who said it is better to build boys than it is to repair broken men. So it really does start, quite frankly, with us as parents, because we know that before a child hits the classroom door, For the first 72 months of their lives, they're with us. And so young people, if we don't fix them and capture their imagination by 4th grade, when they get to 6th grade and they don't know how to read, and then we expect them to persist by the time they get to 9th grade, then already we've lost those young people. So we need to capture them before they have a taste of what misdemeanors look like and end up over the age of high school.
So my question, when did Black Lives start mattering? Black Lives Matter, that's the movement that's going on right now. When did Black Lives start mattering to you? Black lives always matter to me. I heard the question being asked, well, whoever has been stopped and frisked? Me, I have. Who knows what it feels like to be in the back of a police car and you did absolutely nothing wrong? Your bachelor's degree means nothing. My master's degree means nothing. I am who I am, and I'm in the back of a police car. So for me, Black lives have always mattered. It mattered to me about 10 years ago when I went down in New Orleans after Katrina, working with the Children's Defense Fund, and I seen the catastrophe that existed, the injustice, specifically when you're talking about Black folks, the institutional racism that we see not just on the local and state level, but also on a federal level. So Black lives have always mattered to me. It's the work that I've been doing my entire life since I was a child in the Freedom Schools program. I've been involved in a number of Black male engagement initiatives. I'm a part of the BB Network, which focuses on changing the narrative around Black males, not just locally, but across the country. Because we have to make sure that we change the perception of how society views Black males and what's considered the norm for Black males in our community. I started the Isaiah Thomas basketball camp because we recognize that young children in certain neighborhoods in the city of Philadelphia, you have nothing to do when summer programs end or public schools haven't started yet. What do you do the last week of August? Because it's not like parents have off work. So we started the Isaiah Thomas basketball camp 3 years ago because we recognize these same problems that you're talking about today. If you believe Black lives matter, you'll vote for me and you'll support me unequivocally and unapologetically. I'll give you a quick story. And I have to go after this. This is my last question. When I was an undergrad, I became a professor because I seen a professor who looked like me, that came from where I came from, that inspired me to be a professor. Out of all the young Black males that I've mentored in my life, imagine how many of them will be inspired to be involved in the political process if they see somebody like me without a non-traditional political background that's now the youngest person to ever sit on city council in the history of this city. So I apologize, I have to go. This is my last question. But again, my name is Isaiah Thomas, and I hope to have your support in City Council at large.
We're now going to ask Helen Ginn, Tom Hyde, and Councilman W. Wilson Good to comment at this time and address the issues of restorative justice, mass incarceration, and the criminal justice system here in Philadelphia. Please come in that way.
This is a profoundly moving topic and an incredibly important topic. And the effort that we do today to reduce the cycles of violence that perpetuate harm and dehumanize our communities are going to be the ones that are going to lead us into our future. One of the things that I think that we need to think about very deeply is transparency and accountability. What we know leads us to have us do what we know to be right. Clearly what we know about stop and frisk is that it is a brutal racist policy that is targeted specifically Black men across the city. It doesn't work, it's expensive, they don't lead to improvement in our policing, they don't make our communities safer. We know that within our immigrant communities, people who are being picked up for minor things get thrown into the the deportation pipeline, get separated from their families. It's mass incarceration within our immigrant communities as well for people who are picked up for nonviolent offenses, thrown into jail for weeks, months, years at a time. It's a very, very serious issue. So if what we know will lead us to do what is right. And what we know about stop and frisk, about broken windows policing, and over-abuse of policing in our communities will not help us come to a 21st century policing model. It won't bring us restorative justice practices. That has never been made more clear than in the school-to-prison pipeline that we see today in our own city. When we deal with the school-to-prison pipeline, where we strip resources out of schools, every single school in this city will have a metal detector, a police officer, and surveillance cameras. But you cannot guarantee a single school in this city will have a school nurse, a functioning librarian, classrooms that work, paper, for God's sake, paper. And then we throw our young people into this system. We ask them to fend for themselves, and when something goes wrong, we bring down the terrors of the police and all the abuses of the communities. And that, to me, is the definition of racism. It's human rights abuses that are happening in our city, on our watch, to our young people, and we need to stand up around that. We need to put, really quickly, the policing budget in our city is off the charts. A marginal reduction away from policing and incarceration and mass incarceration back to more humanistic practices, counseling, stop criminalizing drugs and drug addiction, get mental health counseling, support for our community. We'll put hundreds of millions of dollars back into our city and into our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you. Stop and frisk is not an effective policing mechanism that needs to be stopped. I think that not just with respect to the police, but citywide, I think there is a cleansing effect to transparency, accountability, and embracing both. And that's the culture that I'll strive for as a city council person with my colleagues there, and I will model and strive for with every city and agency that we interact with, including the police. I'd like to tell you my passion about education isn't just about my 2 young kids or the hundreds of thousands of other young people in this city. It's about an entry point for opportunity. And when I was a younger professional, I worked as a counselor at a halfway house. Most of the people I worked with were about 19 to 20-year-old males. And at that point in their life, some of them were addicted to drugs, some of them were involved in petty crime, some of them had several DUIs and they couldn't break the cycle. When I sat down with those young men, what was inside them was a feeling of despair, a feeling that we can't go forward, I have nowhere to go. And I would try as hard as I could to work with those young men and talk about the same thing I talked about when I was a classroom teacher. This is your entry point to opportunity. I know this is tough, but let's work together on the kind of counseling that we can get you. Let's get out in the community and get some applications for a job. And I can tell you that I know firsthand what it feels like to work with young people who are coming from the system and trying to use that as an entry point for opportunity. And absolutely, we need more resources and we need more focus on that matter. Thank you.
I will talk for 2 minutes or less, but I could talk for a very long time about this issue. I'm a co-sponsor of the legislation for independent review board, but I don't think it's necessarily going to work. I am a proponent of body cameras for police. There's money in this year's budget for that. But I don't necessarily think that's going to work either, although they are part of the solution. I mentioned this group that I belong to, the national group, when we had our national board meeting up in New York in December. We were sitting around the table at a time when people were protesting around the country. And the board members wanted to leave the meeting and go to protest. But first they wanted to draft a statement. And then they argued about what should go in the statement. As they argued about what should go in the statement, they said, well, we as elected officials have to take responsibility for this. We are to blame. I said to them, I am not to blame for a cop shooting my cousin in the back in 2008. I don't take responsibility for that. I said that I can vote for an independent review board, I can vote for body cameras, I can vote for any number of different things. But when I asked the question about the protests taking part around the country by the media, I said the issue is how young black men are perceived. That's the beginning and end of it. What I've done along the way, which I guess shocked some people when I did it about 7 or 8 years ago, some people might remember this, I asked Paul Vallis, I said, I hear what you said you've done in terms of graduation rates. What have you done in terms of graduation rates for young black men? So I don't know. Why would I keep the statistic? I said because it's important to know. Because they build jails for young black men. They build jails for young black men because of reading scores, because of math scores, because sometimes they think that those young black men don't have an opportunity in society because they will not academically achieve. So I said, thank you. So I'll be very brief. It's saying that it is all about starting very on by investing in both the reality, opportunity, and perception of young black men. Thank you very much.
We know that many corporations in the city play big-time lobbyists to consistently go in and out of the offices of City Council in Harrisburg and other places, trying to make sure that our political leaders vote in the favor of business and not in the favor of Philadelphia. I don't know about you, but I think they should be more concerned about the people that live in the houses in the city of Philadelphia, that are working in the city of Philadelphia, than they do any mucky-muck 1%er CEO that lives someplace else and comes in Philadelphia periodically. We are sick of midnight phone calls to politicians making them choose policies that are against the best issues for the city of Philadelphia. Philadelphia belongs to Philadelphia. Philadelphia belongs to Philadelphia. Philadelphia belongs to Philadelphia. Our speaker at this time is Aretha Spady, who is a home care worker and a member of SEIU Healthcare PA. We welcome Ms. Spady to the stage, and you have 3 minutes to share your story with us.
Hi, my name is Aretha Spady. I'm a home care worker here in Philadelphia. I've been a home care worker for 20 years. It started out taking care of my family members. My compassion for the job is enormous. I've been doing this for 20 years. I make $10.50 an hour, and yet I love my job. I have illnesses, my husband has illnesses, we have grandchildren, and yet I still get up every morning and go to work. I have 2 grandchildren that are in the school system, 3 or 4 years old. My 4-year-old had to be relocated to another school after the schools closed down, and we had to regroup him. He still goes through having to learn a new teacher and new children today because education wasn't important enough for his kindergarten class to stay open for him. Here in Philadelphia and across Pennsylvania, people like me are seeking tax rates increase while our cities and towns find it hard to fund schools and public services. Part of the problem is some giant non-for-profit institutions that claim tax exempts and take vulnerability property off the tax rolls. We're not talking about food banks and churches. Many of these tax exempts go to a handful of giant mega charities, institutions that are hard to distinguish from for-profit companies. There's an amendment proposal in Harrisburg right now that deeply concerns me. It should be concerning to everyone. And it pays their fair, and hard to pay their fair share, because this amendment, called the Purely Public Charities Amendment, would make it easier for these large nonprofit organizations that look a lot like for-profit companies to get tax exempts and push a higher tax burden onto ordinary residents like who are left to the funds of our schools, roads, and public services. We need a fair taxation system and public charities amendment would weaken the standards that nonprofits have to meet, and that would mean more tax avoidance at our expense. We need corporate accountability of groups that get huge tax breaks that we pay for, whether nonprofit or for-profit. We are entitled to hold these groups to high standards that protect taxpayers, workers, and Pennsylvania's well-being. What does the candidates propose to do to make everyone pay their fair share? That's right.
Philadelphia should be about Philadelphians. Amen. Philadelphia should be about Philadelphians. We have to curb corporate influence in our democracy. We have to make sure that the voices of folk in our neighborhoods are more important than the voices of well-paid lobbyists who live in Jersey and Delaware and in other places outside of our city. We need political officials that will take as seriously the young man wearing sneakers and hoodies in City Hall as they do somebody walking in a Brooks Brothers suit or a Jones of New York pant outfit. Amen, somebody. We need to make sure that single moms who are struggling are heard, more importantly than folks that are driving up in Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs and fancy cars in the halls of City Hall. We need to curb corporate influence in our democracy. We should not live in oligarchy. We should live in a place where my vote actually counts and means something when I go to the ballot box. So the Working Families Party has a platform. We are asking our city council candidates to respond to the following. The Working Families Party wants publicly financed election campaigns for all city electoral offices. Let's get business money out of the election process. Bar legislation that privatizes city property or city work currently performed by city employees. Let's keep Philadelphians working for their city. Fire Wall Street advisors from the city pension fund. And enable the city to claw back subsidies from corporations that fail to provide jobs or other benefits to city residents. If you are here and you are not benefiting from Philadelphia, you do not have the benefit of our tax dollars. Now we'll hear from the candidates. Please tell us where you stand on these proposals and what you would do to help hand political influence back to people, not to corporations. We will hear from the following three candidates, and we ask them to come in the following order. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, Councilman Wilson Good, and candidate Helen Ginn. Please come in that order. You have 2 minutes at least, and please abide by the time restrictions.
Local dollars should stay local. It's real simple. Local dollars should stay local, and bad corporate citizenship should not be rewarded. If we want to do something about it, I suggest we look at the board of directors of these corporations. 17% of the boards in this region are occupied by women, and less than 1% of the boards in this region are occupied by women of color. So I suggest we take a look at the boards. There's a new law on the books. If you want to do business with the city of Philadelphia, and you're bidding on a contract of $250,000 or more, you now are required to tell us what that board looks like. That was my legislation that I put forth, the first of its type in the country. If we want to begin to do something different when it comes to corporate participation or not, then I'm of the view we need to look more closely at what those boards look like. And too many of them do not look like Philadelphia.
I may not take 2 minutes on this. Let me start with the fact that I totally support a one-person, one-vote system. And no one has done more in this city, or actually in this Commonwealth, to restrict municipal campaign contributions. The campaign contribution law is actually my law from 2003, because I support a one-person, one-vote system. Because I remember the days when people could give $100,000 or $1 million contribution and, in effect, supposedly own someone. But on the flip side of that, let me talk about not being owned. Let me talk about not being what's called a corporate Democrat. There's no one else who's been a role model for the economic disadvantage than me as a policymaker. My job is to try to bridge the gap between the haves and have-nots, to try to level the playing field. So I've fought banks, I've fought developers, I've fought corporations, and now actually this election they're fighting me. If you haven't heard, they're coming for me. They're raising money to come after me because I represent exactly that. And I believe that if you elect people, you give them your tax dollars, you're supposed to get a return on it in terms of not just the citizenship right to vote, but the citizenship right to participate in capitalism. Economic rights, economic opportunity, a leveling the playing field, more equality. So that's why I fought for, and I've tried to level the playing field, even in terms of the electoral system, to do that. Thank you.
So much of what's wrong with our democracy today is what's happening behind closed doors. Whether it's high-paid consultants and lobbyists going behind closed doors to shut down and plot to shut down almost 88 schools across the city, or whether it's undisclosed donors who are trying to buy off city council. That's what's happening in our city today. We need to ask ourselves, why is it that for the people of this community, the poorest, largest city in the country, we're being delivered a message of austerity and deprivation, while for the biggest, most wealthiest individuals, we get tax abatements, we get nonprofit breaks, we get Comcast paying zero property taxes, and Delaware loopholes. We've got a $50 million Dilworth Plaza downtown where people can ice skate around in a circle, and we can't get investment in our neighborhood. People going to be. Don't ask yourselves what they will do. Ask them what they have done. I've stood up against and gone toe-to-toe with big money in whether it came through the measures of predatory gambling in casino. We got a community to stand up, immigrant people who stood up and defied the most money politicized lobbyists in the nation at the time and demanded the right to self-determination. We stood up when corporate donors were coming in to shut down our public schools, strip out collective bargaining. We stood up against the William Penn Foundation when they were going to come in and buy off what would be the future of our children in our city. Together we stood up against that, and we told people that this was our Philadelphia. We want a fair share economy. We want to fix these broken campaign finance laws that allows undisclosed money to pour into our elections and literally buy off city council. We want a fair share economy that demands that our nonprofits pay their fair share. We're going to make sure Comcast pays its fair share. Finally, I'll just say one last thing. I will be a full-time city council person. I will not take another job that pays me and has me accountable to other people. I will be a full-time council person for you.
We're going to ask Sherry Cohen and Tom Wyatt to come, please, at this time. 2 minutes apiece, and please, I don't mind praying, but I'm not trying to do it right now. Amen. You have 2 minutes apiece.
All right, so on the issue of publicly financed elections, like if you look around at the crew here who are running, you know, it's a pretty good crew of people who are running, perhaps you might agree. But imagine if we had publicly financed elections, then who would be running then? Many more of you. And that would be a wonderful slate for us to have in the city. So we need to really be fighting for that. There's this PAC people have been talking about, a business PAC, that is supporting certain at-large candidates for office. So if you want to find out, check out who this group may be supporting, because big business is trying to take control of the at-large race. So check out who's being supported by that big business PAC and who's not, and I'm not. So, we've talked about companies having to pay their fair share. We want banks. Remember the interest rate swaps that cost the city and school district hundreds of millions of dollars? All right, we've got to eliminate this role that big bankers are playing. We need a city bank, a public bank for our city, to put our city money in. We need the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, which makes decisions about who gets money for economic development projects. The people sitting on that board should not be the Chamber of Commerce. It should be the people in this room here. And the corporations who get money for, okay, we're gonna do this project and hire this many people. Well, who's monitoring? Who is following up? And who is ensuring that those jobs are not given to Philadelphia residents in need, that those companies have to pay those subsidies back to the city? Those are policies that we need here in Philadelphia.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. Appreciate it. Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you. Since this is the last time I'm going to get my hands on the mic, I want to say again how grateful I am to be here with you today, and how proud I am to be with these other public servants and candidates. So I'll make it full circle. For me, it's about entry points for opportunity. It's why I'm passionate about K-12 education. It's why I'm passionate about making sure that we're returning people from incarceration. We're getting people to work who are not at work now. Just like public service, we need to broaden the band of that point of opportunity. There are thousands and thousands of leaders in this city sitting on the sidelines, because I think we all know the power of incumbency and money. And that's why I'm going to dedicate my time in City Council, of course, to being a great council person, but also making sure that everybody knows that leadership has nothing to do with me. My theory of leadership is that you're enabling other people to do great things. And I want to make it clear that there's more than one path to being able to fulfill your dreams of being a public servant. And that's where I stand on that. With respect to the tax structure, we do have a crazy tax structure in this city. As I mentioned earlier, we have over a third of our workforce, hundreds of thousands of people getting into a bus, a car, or a train, and leaving the city for work. We need to bring businesses and jobs back to the city. They need to be paying their fair share, because we cannot continue to have working families in this city paying more and more and more for less and less services. Thank you.
Let's thank Ms. Spady and all of these candidates for responding to this issue today. And we all know, keeping Philadelphia municipal elections and focus on the important issues that we've been hearing about today will require more than just talking. We've got to take action. I want to bring up right now Katie Sipp, Director of Pennsylvania Working Families, to talk more about how we stay involved. Can we celebrate Katie as she comes?
So before I start talking, I would like to see, again, we're going to make you stand up. How many folks in this room were at the very first Pennsylvania Working Families Forum in November of 2013, where we talked to Democratic candidates who were running for governor? Stand up if joined us today. And how about this platform? Did we start small when we decided to set a platform for the city elections this year? We did not start small. This is not a small platform. I would like to have everybody who was on the planning committee for the forum and have helped work on drafting our platform for the city of Philadelphia. If you all can stand up and get a round of applause from folks in the room today, I would appreciate it. I also want to take a minute to just thank the staff of Pennsylvania Working Families. If they're here in the room, could you stand up? That's Eric Rosso, Amy Featheroff, Mike Chow, Roger Henry, Daniel Graves, Howard Fisher, and Will Dickens. Give those folks a hand. I want to point out that Dwayne has really empowered the hoodie-wearing caucus within our staff organization. They're going to be very excited about their ability to wear hoodies to City Hall now instead of me making them dress fancy like I did for today. So I want to take a quick second to just make a personal statement, which is about the issue of restorative justice. So for those of you who came to our forum in 2013, when we talked to gubernatorial candidates, that wasn't something that was on the sort of on our issue platform for that forum. And I am super glad that we have actually been able to move in a direction of being able to talk about those issues as they affect people in our city, and I want to talk a little bit about why. So for those of you who don't know me, for many years I worked for the Service Employees International Union and most recently worked for SEIU Healthcare PA. And in 2012 I had an experience, and this was not an experience that was the first time it had happened, but we had a member of our union who was working on the campaign, working to help re-elect President Obama at that time, who had a family member that got shot while they were working on the campaign. And on the day that Kathleen Kane came to, campaign in Philadelphia, the Saturday before the election, we had the opportunity to connect that member to the woman who's now the Attorney General of Pennsylvania to talk about why issues of gun violence and why issues of restorative justice are important for union members. Because they are the things that happen to us in our communities. And the union doesn't end at the door of your job. And I think that it's important for us, and one of the things that I'm so grateful to be able to do as the Director of Working Families in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania, is to be able to include other working people in advocating on those issues. Because it's important, we've got to do something about the police violence, we've got to do something about ending stop and frisk, and we've got to do something about gun violence in this city and all across the city. So I was on Twitter the other night watching folks that were live tweeting the forum, the Next Great Philly Forum, and one of the reporters that I follow on Twitter made a comment that struck me today, that I hope has been different for the candidates who have participated in our forum today, which was that it must be strange for these candidates of color to look out into these audiences where there's mostly white people. And I really want to thank all of you for coming today, because I think that for us, the other important thing about Working Families is that we actually are representing regular working people in the city of Philadelphia, and you all are here. These look like the people that I go and work with every day. It's not a sort of room full of white folks wearing suits. So thank you for coming and being here the way that you are. So, what are we going to do next? Here's the thing. One thing I would encourage you to all do, if you heard these candidates talk, we're going to have a sort of space in the basement where they're going to be circulating their petitions. And if you liked what they said, you should help them get on the ballot by signing their petitions to run for office. And then once we actually get to the place where, at Working Families, we make some endorsements, we're going to be asking you to help get these folks elected, right? We're going to be asking you to come out. Hopefully we're done with the snow after yesterday, and we'll be out knocking on doors in much pleasanter weather for the rest of the spring. That's my hope, and I know the campus will be hoping for that as well. But we will be calling you all and asking you, and your organizations that you're with will be calling and asking you, please show up, help us get these folks into office, because we're not going to end up endorsing the candidates who have the most money. I will guarantee you that there will be business-funded candidates who will have much more money to spend on getting elected than the candidates that working families will support. And so we need to give them the stuff that we have, which is a little bit of money, but a lot of people power as well. So please, as you are, leaving this forum or hopefully sticking around for the mayoral portion in the afternoon, think about signing up to do some phone banking, think about signing up to canvass. So the last thing I want to say is we do have lunch downstairs for folks. It's very quick, like box lunch, but we will ask you to join us downstairs. You can do petitioning. We'll be having the mayoral portion starting at around 12:30. Please don't bring food back up into the sanctuary. You have to leave the food down in the basement, but take a minute, go down the stairs, use the restroom if you need to. We'll be starting back up with the mayoral candidates at 12:30. Thank you so much.
Quickly, again, we'd just like to thank all of the candidates that are here.
5 after 12.
Again,
Oh, really?
Sherry Collins, Kathleen Wilson-Wood, Tom Ryan, and Councilman Wanda Brown. So we just celebrate that. Thank you to all of the speakers that spoke today and all the co-sponsoring organizations. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you back here in 30 minutes.